White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki dodges when it comes to children and schools versus the teachers union. Liz Cheney survives her House GOP leadership vote. Plus, Joe Biden pushes for more coronavirus spending, even though previous funds have still not been spent. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is the 13-Minute News Hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Friday. I hope you had a great week. If you're new to the show, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to start with the Joe Biden administration because there are certainly some members of the administration that are worse than others. One in particular, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. She can't answer a single question, and we'll get more to that at the end of the show, but she's unprepared, and her communications team has even admitted that they reach out to reporters before the briefings in order to try and get the questions so they can script an answer. Another thing she does is they have no communication, no connection between relaying Joe Biden's message, whether he has a message or not, whether he had it and forgot it. She can't seem to relay what Joe Biden actually wants to do. One case in particular, children, coronavirus, and schools. Now, as we know, children go through coronavirus differently than the flu. They're largely immune to it. That's why study after study, both in the United States and around the world, says kids should be in schools, that they should not be closed. They should reopen if they are closed, get the kids back into the classrooms. We know this. That's why nations around the world, kids have been back in school for months. Private schools in the US, they've been back in school for months. But what about public schools in these big blue areas run by Democrats? Well, that's a different story. That's where science takes a back seat to politics. Now, this issue came up in yesterday's White House press briefing. Jen Psaki was asked this.
Yesterday, the head of the CDC, as you know, said that it was safe to reopen schools without vaccinating teachers. You said that the White House was still waiting for the official guidance before making a final determination. Why isn't what the director of the CDC says, why isn't that enough?
All right, straightforward question. The CDC director says teachers don't need to be vaccinated as some kind of threshold or requirement for reopening schools. We know that. But why is the White House hesitant? Why aren't they ready to jump on board yet? Here's the response.
The president, let me be crystal clear, wants schools to open. He wants them to stay open. And he wants to do that safely. And he wants health and medical experts to be the guides for how we should do exactly that. So we're just not, Dr. Walensky spoke to this in her personal capacity. Obviously, she's the head of the CDC, but we're going to wait for the final guidance to come out so we can use that as a guide for schools around the country.
So Joe Biden supports kids. He loves kids. He loves schools. He wants to reopen the schools as long as they follow the science. What a lame answer, folks, because they aren't following the science. These studies that said you should get the kids back in school, they came out before there was even a vaccine. Now they want to tie reopenings to a vaccine. Kids have been back in school for months before there was no vaccine at all. This tying of it to the vaccine does not follow the science. But again, that's where politics comes in, and that leads to this question.
Michael Bloomberg said yesterday that it's time for President Biden to stand up and say that the kids are the most important thing and stand up to the teachers' unions. If it comes down to a binary choice, and there's no indication that, the teachers' union in Chicago or San Francisco are willing to budge at this point, if it comes down to a binary choice, who would the president choose, the kids or the teachers?
The kids or the teachers? It's a pretty easy call, right? I mean, the science says we need to reopen. The science and the studies said to reopen before there was even a vaccine. So it should be a pretty easy decision, right? Not exactly. Not if you're Joe Biden or Jen Psaki.
I think that's a little bit unfair how you pose that question, but I will say the president believes schools should be open. Teachers want schools to be open. Families want schools to be open, but we want to do it safely.
The question was unfair? Oh my gosh, folks. Let's just go back in time to a typical White House press briefing with White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany and all the actual unfair questions she got. Question after question after question. Jen Psaki says this basic one is a little unfair to me. Give me a break. All you have to do is follow the science. But the problem is that the Democrats have this powerful teachers union that they're beholden to, that they have to follow their lead or the money gets cut off. They're not following the science, and it just shows that politics trumps science when it comes to the Democrats and our kids getting back to school. So next, let's talk about Liz Cheney. But first, if you're new to the show or haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified. We're making our push for 150,000 subscribers, and we can do it with your help. All right, let's talk about Liz Cheney, folks, because she has been under fire since she joined 9 other Republicans to vote for impeachment of President Donald Trump following the January 6th Capitol riot. And as we know, this was a sham impeachment, folks. All the Democrats voted for it. There was no due process, no defense presented by the Trump team at all. And yet 10 Republicans went along with that. He said to peacefully and patriotically let your voices be heard. Exercising free speech, they ignored that. No due process, yet they pushed ahead with impeachment. So this pressure to remove her from her GOP leadership post has been intense. Since her vote, multiple counties, GOP county parties in Wyoming have voted to censure her. She now has drawn a primary opponent for her next election, and more than half of the GOP conference in the House wanted her gone. They wanted her ousted from that leadership position. Seems like a done deal, right? Not so fast. Although not a member of the House, Senate Minority Leader, our GOP leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, he came out in support of Liz Cheney. The House GOP leader, Kevin McCarthy, has come out for Liz Cheney. So it's the leadership versus more than half of the House Republicans who want her gone. Who won? How did it end up? Here's the story. Representative Liz Cheney survived a rank-and-file rebellion over her impeachment vote against former President Donald Trump, clinging to her leadership position in the House and reaffirming the power of the establishment Republicans as they look to chart a more conventional and less radioactive course. During a more than 4-hour closed-door Republican caucus meeting, Mr. McCarthy delivered an impassioned plea on behalf of Ms. Cheney before lawmakers voted 145 to 61 to keep her on as chair of the Republican conference. So, a few days ago, more than half of the conference wanted her gone, more than enough votes to remove her from that spot. Then we get the final vote, the actual vote of 145 to 61. Where did all those people go? What happened to this vote? The majority wanting her out, and then it becomes 145 to 61. And here's more. Mr. McCarthy told his Republican colleagues that people can have differences of opinion. Liz has a right to vote her conscience, he said. At the end of the day, we are going to be united. Mr. Trump's shadow loomed large over Ms. Cheney's future. I don't think this is about Liz Cheney. She took a vote of her conscience, Representative Jaime Herrera Beutler, Washington Republican, told reporters on Capitol Hill. This is about the direction of our party and whether or not we are going to be a minority who is dedicated to just one person, or we are going to be a united Republican majority. Wow. Okay. So, vote of conscience, fine, fair enough. But even votes of conscience have consequences. And when that vote of conscience leads to a vote to deny someone due process, when it leads to a vote of an impeachment sham, putting forward an impeachment sham, when it leads to a vote to condemn someone for exercising their First Amendment rights, then it transcends being a vote of conscience and goes to a vote of stupidity. And votes of stupidity have consequences, folks. And yes, the Republican Party should be united, but we can't have people condemning people for free speech, for not having due process. This was a bad vote, not simply a vote of conscience, whether you want taxes to go down 10% or 11%. Give me a break. Now, the Wyoming voters, they'll have ultimate say. She's got a primary opponent. Maybe she's not even back for the next term. But in the meantime, the GOP House Conference, that caucus, had a responsibility to send a message that we need to do things right, that we need to be united for conservative principles like due process and freedom of speech. They failed. That is pure and simple. Next, let's talk about Joe Biden and coronavirus, because he is pushing a $2 trillion spending package, $2 trillion more for coronavirus spending, yet there's over $1 trillion that still has not been spent. So, maybe it's a good idea to spend that first and then revisit this, then figure out what the true package should be? That's just a thought, and here's the story. House Republicans are pressing President Joe Biden to identify funds Congress has designated for coronavirus relief over the last year that have not yet been spent, and use those before piling on with additional government spending. We write today concerned about your proposed $1 trillion emergency spending proposal related to COVID relief. The House GOP members wrote to Biden in a letter Breitbart News exclusively obtained ahead of its public release. We believe federal agencies should use funds that have not been committed or dispersed and are currently available before Congress considers another massive emergency spending bill. Wow. Why is this approach doomed? Because it makes too much sense. They just say spend the money that's been allocated first, and then we'll revisit this. Better yet, don't have the spending bill at all. Folks, the very best stimulus check is a paycheck. People need to be back to work. We should not have been locked down in the first place. It is unconstitutional. You cannot tell a large segment of the population that you are non-essential, that you can't go to work, that you can't run your business and earn a paycheck or make payroll so that other people can buy food and pay rent and pay mortgages. That is what is going on here. We don't need these bills, especially when there is money sitting there still waiting to be spent. And here's more. Last year, Congress spent $4 trillion in response to the COVID pandemic, with $900 billion signed into law just after Christmas, Republican Representative Kat Cammack told Breitbart News. This unchecked spending garnishes the wages of our future children. Our national debt has skyrocketed, reaching nearly $28 trillion, and we spent more on COVID relief than all New Deal era programs combined. There's money in the pipeline already, and we need to be serious about delivering COVID relief to Americans using funds that have already been appropriated. Again, folks, makes too much sense, but Washington is all about spending, 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 and they forget or don't care that it's our money. It's our taxpayer money. Government just doesn't have money. We give it. It should be spent properly or kept in our hands. That's what it should do, so that we can spend it ourselves, that we can make our own choices with our own money. But that's what's going on in Washington. And that, with Joe Biden and Jen Psaki and these bills, it leads us to ask the Democrats and the left, do you have a relaxed brain?
I got what you call, a relaxed brain.
All right, folks, first let's talk about Jen Psaki. We started with her. We got to bring her back in relaxed brain because they've only been on the job 2 weeks, and she's already proven, as I said, she can't answer questions. She's not prepared, but she sure can circle back to you with that answer.
I'll circle back if there's more I can share with you. I'll circle back with you if there's more to convey. I'll have to just circle back with you. We can circle back with him. I'm happy to circle back with you. I can circle back. I will have to circle back on that one. That's an excellent question. Oh, such an important question. We will circle back with you, and we'll circle back with you. It's an interesting question, but we'll circle back. I'm happy to circle back, but I'll have to circle back with you on it. It's a good question, but we'll circle back with you on this today. We will certainly circle back with you more directly.
I absolutely love it. So many questions, so few answers. Next, let's talk about Senator Josh Hawley, whose book that was going to come out by Simon & Schuster got nuked. And why? Because it was on some controversial subject? No, he's talking about big tech, social media. He got canceled because he spoke out on election integrity. Well, Simon & Schuster is coming out with a book, this one from Hunter Biden. They are doing a Hunter Biden book about his journey through addiction. So Josh Hawley gets canceled, Hunter Biden gets promoted. That's relaxed brain. And of course, we can't have relaxed brain without Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And as you probably heard, her Capitol story, all her fear and terror and now being afraid of Republicans, it's not exactly accurate. She's talking about people coming down into the Capitol, terrorizing her, chasing her. She was in fear. Turns out she wasn't even in the Capitol building. It's been pointed out she wasn't even there, which leads to this headline from the Babylon Bee. AOC recalls how she barely survived terrorists seizing Nakatomi Plaza. I just love that one. Again, she was probably there. Nakatomi Plaza, Hans Gruber, and all the rest from Die Hard. AOC was there too. All right, folks, that's our show for today. But before you leave, please tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow is our Saturday live stream, 11 a.m. Central Time. Our special guest, Grant Stinchfield from the program Stinchfield, Newsmax Primetime. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about his show and a whole lot more. So please tune in. That's tomorrow, Saturday, 11 a.m. Central Time. We'll see you there. Folks, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified, and we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified. And here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-minute news hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.